when people meet me, they say, what do you do? Sometimes, if they don't know me from outside the art world. And I'll say, I'm an art dealer. And they, oh, that's so much fun. That's so great. It must be so great. How's business? And then I say, do you know anyone who collects art? And they go, no. So the answer there is that, like the dog food, everyone has a dog, and everyone buys dog food, but there's very, very few collectors in the world. I started actually in 1983 in the East Village. And I hadn't even ever myself known a collector when I opened or knew what collecting was. And we opened because we were very tired of seeing the art that was out there, and we wanted to show art that spoke to us in the 1980s. So Penny and I have been partners. PP is Penny Pilkington, and OW is myself. And we've plodded through 35 years of the art world. And there's been extreme ups and downs, but what really has held us together in many ways, many things, but a main thing are the collectors that trust us and believe in our program. And that's when we were really, really young, and like a $5,000 sale for us would make the difference make a difference for an artist, and make a difference for us to pay the bills. And when someone would then come in, because the art world, like Alan's saying, are basically sheep, and that was a great disillusionment to myself when I started, because I didn't go into any other business because I wanted to be with radical, interesting, innovative, creative, independent thinkers. I found myself in quite the opposite world, where every collector was pretty much wanting to buy what every other collector had. And you would go to collections, and you can still do this, and everyone is the same. So I think that my artists are not always in those collections, and a lot of the collectors have very independent minds, very independent thinkers, do not always go to art fairs. But I've had the good fortune and the support of my business partner and collectors to be now more stable and a role model, I hope, for a different kind of art dealing. So let's just see what slides are here. So David Vonarovich was a radical artist. He died from AIDS-related illness in 1992. We showed him in his last two shows, and how many people here know who he is? Okay. And if you don't, he's going to be showing films at KW in February, and he's having a one-person show at the Whitney, so I am amazed at that. And it's going to move to the Reina Sofia as well. But his work, like people say to me now, and you'll see a few other artists, you can just flip through as you want, say to me, oh, I wish I was there. I wish I bought David then. I was so stupid. And I'm like, but I'm showing people now you should buy. The artists I'm showing now, it's the same. And in 20 or 30 years, you will have something very valuable to society and very valuable for yourself to own, because you'll learn a lot, as Alan said also. Engaging with art, and I think there aren't a lot of collectors because they feel they're being taken. They see all these zeros and read all the press, and they think it's all about money and fashion, and they get intimidated, but it's really the reason is they don't have the time. Because art is not like going to a movie. You don't get it right away, and people think it's entertainment. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of looking. It's a lot of reading. You know, you can't understand something, and sometimes you're afraid of it. It's because you just haven't done the research. There's huge scholarship in the arts. It goes on globally all the time. And you have to talk to people you respect, and not things you read in ArtNet or whatever it is you read. So David, and the artists I show, it's not like David's like Keith Haring or Basquiat, even though he's from the same generation, because he's so vocal, so political, and the work is so rare. And it takes very special people to buy it too, who are very committed, because when you have his work hanging in your house, or you're a curator who's having to advocate for it in a committee, you have to be passionate and understand it, and understand the politics behind it, and then convince others. A good dealer, like a good collector, a good curator, their passion, a good writer, will sustain them a lot. Carrie Mae Weems was an early artist we showed also, who's very, very well known now. And David died before gay marriage. Carrie Mae Weems did work about Black history in America before Obama was a dream to us. like you'd never imagine. But the art was first. What they're saying in the art is, I really have been around long enough to know that the artist is there first. And if you are passionate about that as a collector, you can start with a Carrie Mae Weems or a David Wojnarowicz or whoever's showing here or in young galleries or whatever galleries. Once you've done the research, you've talked to the collector, maybe you wanted to meet the artist, and you come up and decide to buy something, you are changing history. I really think it could be in terms of any mode of art making, video, abstraction, sculpture. That doesn't matter to me. It's the connection you make to the art and your independent thinking of what is your collection, why are you doing this? Some people are doing it to impress their friends, but that's not who we sell to. Carolee Schneemann, another example, a woman who is, her whole life, and to some degree still, is really denigrated by the art world. She's had major shows in major museums around the world, and recently in Salzburg and Frankfurt at PS1 New York. And the value of her work, because the work looks different, because we don't have like a vocabulary to understand what feminist, female work is. I mean, it's starting to change, but the people will look at it and say, oh, it's messy, or she didn't make it look like this, or it looks like Rauschenberg. I mean, it's all real nonsense, really. So you have to do the work. And time, I really believe, and she's influenced so many generations now, because she's 5 generations of art, women, female artists, and men and gay artists too. So that's the cover of her catalog from Kinetic Painting. That's drawn with Sabina Breitweiser. Martin Wong's another artist we showed. We did 2 shows of his toward the end of his life. The work sat in our storage for 20 years. I mean, I would give anything to have those pieces back. And our collectors, and museums, like the Museum of Modern Art, big museums, but young collectors who got it. It wasn't the older collectors, it's the young collectors. So because I'm 60, my peers are now in higher levels of museums, but the young collectors, the young curators who are looking for inspiration and meaning, they see Martin Wong and they get it. And then they go to their committees and convince the collectors who are on those committees. As a collector, is kind of the link that can link a curator and a museum and a dealer for support. And remember, collectors are caretakers. I mean, we die, Alain's gonna die, and his collection will live on. So it's so important that we trust who we sell it to, so when they pass away and you place it, it can go to a museum. For example, in our first show, we sold a work, and I didn't even know what this meant, to a woman named Elaine, who's obviously American, in the States, named Elaine Danheiser, and of Suco. And they said, Suco, Elaine Danheiser, you're such a good collector. And Eli Broad brought her work. They're such good collectors. I was like, what's the difference between that person and this collector? They all seem like everyone had $5,000, and it's like but the good collector, I later realized, is that when Elaine couldn't care for her collection anymore, she donated the pieces to the Museum of Modern Art. So I was standing there 20 years ago, I was like, oh my God, this is where it ended up. So it didn't end up on the auction block. You know, it ended up in a really good place forever, hopefully, until we are annihilated by God knows what. Betty Tompkins is another example. A woman 74 years old. She's been painting. This is from the 70s. It's from 1974. There are only 7 of them left. They're really huge paintings. And what she did was focus on the genitalia of people having sex and pornography. Rather than the woman, it was male pornography, which it's changing a bit now, but of course it's always a man setting the stage, and the male is having pleasure, and the woman is not. So she just took all that out and focused on the genitalia to make us rethink about sex, as Carolee Schneemann did too. And it's like today, with the way women are thinking now, I mean, these women have really changed the way they think about their bodies. And so Betty, the work is still very tough. The Brooklyn Museum is going to show a large fuck painting for the first time on the wall of the museum in the fall. And she's been in museums, but not in an institutional big historical museum. So I'm hoping that the sheep mentality of the art world will catch on a little bit, so people are not so afraid of looking at sex when it's not directed by a man managing the scene. So Betty's amazing art. She does a lot of work about feminism, and we're showing in the fall, she's done a series of apologias. So she's taken all the apologies men have gained from Harvey Weinstein to people in the art world, to famous chefs, to people in media, and their apologies are all, oh, I didn't mean it, I'm so sorry, I had no idea, it wasn't so bad, she made it sound worse, and they're all the same. So she's putting them over art historical paintings, sometimes by Artemisa Gentileschi. So you're not looking at just these people now who are so apologetic in such an insincere way, but it's a history of Western art that's way. So she's just making it so next time you go to a museum, you look a little differently, you see things differently, as Alain said. The art can make you see differently. It's not a trivial pursuit of fashion. It's not, no one's trying to take anyone for a ride. It's a real sincere endeavor where you can actually make political change. So next. There it is. That's the Artemisa Gentileschi, and the quote is by Knight Landsman from Art Forum. So thank you so much.